What if the greatest loss in human history was not a war, not a plague, not a collapse of an empire, but building, a building filled with ideas? And what if its destruction didn't just erase books, but it erased possibilities? Welcome to the evidence gap. In the 3rd century BCE, in the Egyptian city of Alexandria, the Ptolemaic dynasty founded what would become the most legendary library in history, the Library of Alexandria. It was not just a building, it was a project, a deliberate attempt to collect all human knowledge. Ships entering the harbor were searched for books, manuscripts were copied, scholars from across the Mediterranean were invited to study, write, translate, and debate. Greek philosophy, Egyptian mathematics, Babylonian astronomy, Persian history. It was ambitious. It was radically ambitious. And at some point, it disappeared. The popular story goes something like this. Julius Caesar set fire to ships in the Alexandrian harbor in 48 BCE. The flames spread and the library burned. Or perhaps it was destroyed later, during Roman conflicts, or during Christian purges in the 4th century, or during the Muslim conquest in the 7th century. Depending on who you ask, the blame shifts, but the emotional core remains the same. Humanity lost its greatest archive. Here's where things get uncomfortable. There's no single clean historical account of the library's destruction. There's no ancient historian that stands at the scene and writes, "Today the Library of Alexandria was destroyed." Instead, we have fragments, references, contradictions, silences. Some scholars argue the library likely declined gradually. Funding was cut, political priorities shifted, scholars dispersed. Others argue the Great Library may have been only one part of a larger scholarly complex. And the different parts suffered damage at different times. In other words, there may not have been one dramatic fire. There may have been slow decay. And that possibility changes everything. Now, here's the deeper question. Even more destabilizing, how much unique knowledge was actually stored there? We often hear claims like, it contained inventions centuries ahead of their time, steam power, advanced medicine, lost philosophies. But the truth is, we don't know. We don't have a catalog. We don't have a surviving master list. We don't even know how many scrolls were there. Estimates range widely from 40,000 to 400,000. That's not precision. That's mythology creeping in. So here's the uncomfortable space. We know that it existed. We know it was significant. We know it eventually ceased to function, but we don't know how it ended, what was truly inside, what, if anything, was permanently lost, whether its destruction was catastrophic or gradual. And into that gap, we project. We project golden ages. We project lost technologies. We project alternate timelines, even. Because the idea of a lost treasure of knowledge it's emotionally powerful. It feels tragic. But sometimes the tragedy is not the fire. The tragedy is fragility. The real problem here is that the library's greatest weakness may not have been arson, conquest, or religious zealotry. It may have been centralization. All knowledge in one place, dependent on political stability, dependent on funding, dependent on rulers who valued scholarship. When those conditions shifted, the system collapsed. Not necessarily with a bang, but possibly with neglect. The Library of Alexandria has become a symbol. It's become a symbol of lost wisdom, of intellectual vulnerability, of the fragility of civilization. But perhaps the real lesson is not about what was lost. Maybe it's about how we preserve knowledge now. Distributed, redundant, digitized, or perhaps just as fragile, but in new ways. The problem may not have been fire. The problem may have been being too fragile. And being fragile is the evidence gap.